But I'm not here to talk about any of that today. I'm here to talk about sex. But what does it mean if sex isn't affirming of who you are and isn't pleasurable, if you don't have that as a family value? It means you're susceptible to manipulation. I'm sick and tired of people dictating what family values are.
Says that he's sick of people dictating, and then he goes straight into dictating. Mark Holland, man, he is ferocious. He is a problem. He's a nut.
Family values is not crossing our fingers and hoping somebody gets pregnant. Family values are about giving women the freedom of choice of when they start their family.
This guy is a loony. He's nuts. Let's take a look. We've got a very interesting speech that he gave that I don't think many people saw. He knows so much. Oh my God, this guy.
What you've demonstrated is that
we're taking
ideological.
First of all, I'm just going to say I reject.
You're playing with people's lives.
I reject that totally. I reject
it's absolutely disgraceful.
No, what is disgraceful is mischaracterizing my position or mischaracterizing the position of any member of Parliament, sir. Saying that any member of Parliament doesn't care about any human life is a disgraceful thing that I will not tolerate.
Well,
and for you to step into this committee and make an accusation of any member of Parliament that they do not care about the life of another human being is absolutely beyond reproach, sir. I have spent my entire life, as you have, fighting for the good in this world. And for you to accuse a good person of not caring about human life, shame on you. Shame on you.
Mr. Chair.
Mark Holland, man, he is ferocious. He is a problem. He's a nut. And he's our health minister, doctor of death, looking for the MAID program, looking for MAID to be continued. Whew, let's take a look, guys. Mark Holland, our Minister of Health.
And so here I am. So hopefully you're excited to have me here. I'm very excited to be here. And it's such a critically important time now, especially. We talk about the challenge that we're seeing across the world, where sexual and reproductive health and the rights of women are under attack. And a lot of the things that we thought we could take for granted that were hard-fought victories being challenged or rolled back. And so it's a time where we can't be complacent. We're called to move more firmly forward. So I'm excited to talk about that today. And there's a lot of things that we're doing in the realm of health. I could talk about the 26 agreements that we've signed with provinces and territories around primary care and the $200 billion that we're going to be putting in. I could talk about the Sexual and Reproductive Health Fund and the work that's going on there, and I want to thank the SOGC for their partnership. Actually, a very important project on providing information that we're working directly on. I just made an announcement on health data, but I'm not here to talk about any of that today. I'm here to talk about sex.
What the hell, man? Come on, Mark.
And the shame that we have around it. And we just had a conversation earlier. And if we as leaders have shame in talking about sex, then what does that say to somebody who has a sexual health issue? What does that say to somebody who's struggling with their sexual identity or with their gender? So we really have to change how we talk about sex and have mature conversations around sex and sexuality in this country. And so a lot of times I get asked, because we have pharmacare legislation, it's incredibly important, and why diabetes and why contraceptives? So diabetes is a whole other conference. It's a whole other thing. I'm going to talk to you about why I think diabetes is important. I don't think I have to convince you in this room why it's so important that we do free universal contraceptives across the country. But I'm going to give you access a little bit to what my thinking is and what I hope it accomplishes.
Situation. Who is it?
Me.
Who at PHAC? Who's going to lose their job over this?
Nobody.
Nobody. So there is an act of treason, and of course treason is defined in the Criminal Code of Canada as the sharing of military or scientific information
Who are you accusing
with an agent
of treason?
Of a foreign state.
Who are you accusing of treason?
Listen, I'm not here for you to ask
If you're going to
questions.
accuse somebody of treason, you're absolutely going to answer for it. Who are you accusing of treason, sir?
Who
are you accusing? Who are you accusing of treason?
Because in the first order, making sure that women have access to the contraceptive medicines that they need is just fundamental from a perspective of access. So we can take situations where a young girl, as an example, is in a household, maybe that household has insurance, but she doesn't want to have a conversation with her family about her sexual and reproductive health. Maybe she's in a situation where she can't have that conversation. Or what about somebody who's in an abusive relationship? I've talked to too many people about a circumstance where the partner has insurance, but they guard that in a controlling and abusive way so that the woman doesn't have the ability to get access to that insurance to get the coverage that she needs. And then there's just the simple fact that cost is an extraordinary barrier. We know that oral contraceptives have a failure rate of about 9%, and IUDs a failure rate of only 0.2%. So that somebody who doesn't have enough money is forced to choose an option where there's a much higher rate of failure. But in the second order, it's really about freedom and autonomy. I think it's a declaration as a society that free and universal contraception means that we prioritize the sexual health and well-being of women in our country.
The Liberals have abandoned the high road when it comes to debate in the House.
I don't know if you watch Question Period. If you watch Question Period, I've been in this place since 2004. The way, with all due respect, the way the Conservative Party is comporting themselves is equivalent to out-of-control frat house. Listen to the things they're yelling, right? It is deplorable. You know, the homophobic nonsense being thrown around yesterday, and, you know, we're just supposed to every day deal with this frat house nonsense. As I said, it's like they're taking the strategy from the movie Mean Girls, you know, and this is what we face every day. And so, yeah, it's a very, you know, I really, at the end of the week, and I talk to my partner, and I wonder, well, how do you respond to this? You know, I think we're really having trouble, and sometimes you get frustrated. I don't know. That's what human beings do. I don't know if somebody's screaming and yelling at you and denigrating you and making personal slurs, and they do that all day long, and that's your workplace? Like, what other workplace would this stuff be acceptable? Take a look at their behavior. Now, sometimes I own it. I'm not a perfect person. I make mistakes. Sometimes I overreact. Sometimes I get emotional. But I walk into that place as a servant of the house, and I try to comport myself as such. And I think every Canadian should hold people to that behavior. And you're going to wag the dog, pet the donkey, ride the goat nonsense. Like, what does that stuff even mean? These slogans and nonsense. And then in between, screaming, you're going down. Yeah, that's one we're taking. We got your seat. You're done. Like, what?
He knows so much. Oh my God, this guy.
Honorable Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, maybe I can speak in a language the Leader of the Opposition will understand. They're going to cut the dental. They're going to axe the pharmacare. They're going to break the health system, and they're going to destroy childcare. The difference between those slogans and the nonsense he throws around, the vacuous garbage that's best left for Nabisco, not for the House of Commons, is that's the stuff he's actually going to do. And at some point, he's going to have to look in the eyes of seniors and tell them what he's going to do to dental care. He's going to have to look in the eyes of diabetes patients and say what he's going to do with their diabetes medication. At some time, the vitriol done and the truth comes.
I also think it means that you give real choice to women. We talk about, you know, the 40% of pregnancies in this country being unintended. Somebody in the House of Commons said, well, you're going to depopulate the country if you do this. Look, if you want somebody to have a baby, okay, you give them choice. And frankly, if you want them to have babies, you let them choose when and if they start their families. That's not just a matter of social justice. It's not just a matter of it being right. But frankly, if you want to have healthy families, it's the right thing to do. And frankly, we have to change the nomenclature. I'm sick and tired of people dictating what family values are. Family values is not crossing our fingers and hoping somebody gets pregnant. Family values are about giving women the freedom of choice of when they start their family or if they start their family. And I think on that point, if you really are interested in incentivizing women to start a family, then making sure they have access to affordable childcare, making sure that there's a child benefit that's going to make sure they have the dollars to be able to feed that family, making sure that you're taking action on climate so that their child is going to grow up in a safe and secure world, making sure that you put the priorities of being a family first. Because what we're seeing all too often is people say, I'm anti-abortion. Okay, you're against choice. But then how could you also be against free contraception? And if you're against abortion, if you're anti-choice, and you're against access to free contraception, and you're against sex education, then frankly, you're against a woman having any control over her body at all. And I think we need to call that out. Why is somebody who is opposed to choice opposed to contraception? And that brings me back, I think, to my point about conversation of sexual health. Because I think that the issues of attacking the rights of transgendered people, the attacking LGBTQ rights, of being against universal contraception, what do all of these things have in common? Sex. And there's a thought that, you know, we shouldn't touch this topic. People don't want to talk about it. I was the first health minister, or probably the first member of parliament, who talked about the importance of pleasure in sex. And I'll just give you an example of why I think that's such a big deal. Afterwards, somebody saw the speech and they said to me, yeah, but that's like the first, few years of a relationship, and then that goes away, and that's not important anymore. And I could go on and on and on. We need to be upstream. If you come in and the solution is to say, wow, it's a tough world, why don't we cut it and make it worse, then the Conservatives have got a plan for you. But what we're saying is
But that's not what I'm presenting to you, Minister. With all due respect, I'm not saying this is a binary choice between cutting and not. Your party put out an ad asking Canadians to give them credit for the healthcare system that they are enduring right now. And I put to you, I don't know any Canadian who thinks that they have a level of access to that healthcare system that is anywhere near satisfactory that they should in turn be giving you credit for.
But what I'm saying, this isn't about credit. I mean, I appreciate maybe that's how you're thinking about this. It's not how I think about it. I think about it in terms of progress and solutions. And I can tell you that what we're doing on dental care, on pharmacare, on school food, on the bilateral agreements, on interconnected data, and I could go so much deeper on each one of those, but we have a short show. That's because we're not having conversations. This is a progressive, super impressive person. But what does it mean if sex isn't affirming of who you are and isn't pleasurable, if you don't have that as a family value? It means you're susceptible to manipulation. It means that abuse can take place and you don't even necessarily know that it's abuse. I was in a sexual health clinic in Ottawa, and I met a young man named Kirk, who was riddled with shame around his sexuality. This is somebody who had only ever engaged in consensual relationships with adults, and yet his life had been just ravaged with shame. And as a result, he hadn't got tested.
That say this matter about Trudeau's leadership won't be settled until there's a secret ballot.
Well, I mean, everybody's got an opinion. That's what makes our party great. That's what makes democracy great. Our job always in government is to build consensus and to build towards getting people on the same page. What's your point? Do you have a point?
I have lots of points. Well, let's start with the first point. You have no idea what you're talking about. Second point is Canadians wait the longest time in OECD countries for approval of medications, which you clearly have no clue about. We're back to that again. Sadly, the last time you were here, you had no clue, and you remain clueless, obviously. The percentage of new medications available in Canada, 44% of 460 medications. What that means is, despite the fact that you want to go out and announce things that are untrue and not even happening, the system that you have, the regulatory system that you, sir, have control over, is failing Canadians. You had an opportunity to change that. You have chosen not to. You have chosen to attempt to keep yourself in power with your NDP costly coalition partners by creating something that already exists at provincial levels.
That's your time.
Thank you very much.
Didn't know that he had AIDS. Kirk finally found a way in to a sexual health clinic with a community of people who saw him as he was and loved him, and now blows you away as a beaming light, somebody who's now getting the medication that he needs and is becoming an extraordinary advocate. And, I think it's worth asking the question for people to take time to see who's working in the area of sexual health. People for very little money who are there because they see that work lifts people up, lifts them out of darkness, gives them good. To see how much pain is in our society because of simply who somebody is. For me, the idea that we are taught not to trust our bodies and our feelings, to have shame about consensual relationships, has got to end. And it's a conversation I think is long overdue. Folks, sex isn't the enemy. Shame is. Sex isn't bad. Bad is bad. Sex should be about connection and intimacy and joy and pleasure. When it's about pain and violence, it was never about sex, it's about control. And when we don't have those conversations, those lines get blurred and bad things happen. And I think in the shadows of that, terrible things occur. I think if we have open, honest conversations about sex, about our sexuality, it's not only important for, when we talk about LGBTQ rights, but I wonder how much of us wear a mask, where we're afraid to talk about what's going on inside of us. How many people don't come forward and talk to a sexual health expert about issues that are going on with them, about what cost it has to our society and why? Because we're embarrassed about our bodies? Because we're ashamed to talk about sex? 99.99% of the sex we will have has nothing to do with babies. And it's time we grow up about it. I look forward to working with you on it, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you here today.
There seems to be an overabundance of wacko events in Canada these days.
After 9 years, this NDP Liberal government is not worth the hunger and homelessness that it's causing so many Canadians across this country. Many Canadians just simply look forward to a small summer vacation, a road trip perhaps. It's normally a time where they can go and camp in the mountains or go to a national park or visit loved ones. But this year, many Canadians can't afford this simple delight because this government has made life too expensive. On Monday, this House will have the opportunity to vote on a common sense motion to save Canadians 35 cents per litre on gas. Will the Prime Minister vote with us, the common sense Conservatives, so that Canadians can afford a simple vacation, or will he force them to stay home?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, good news, kids. You can take a summer fun time vacation where you're locked in a car for 10 consecutive days, nonstop with no bathroom breaks, and the Conservatives have a plan for you to have that summertime fun. And the cost? Give up the future of the planet, right? Don't worry, kids, about climate change. Don't worry about taking action on the planet. Enjoy your 10 hours in the car and let the planet burn.
I think our leader, Trudeau, I don't think I've ever heard him say a true word.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics. this out. Where's Randy, guys? Look up. Is he up there? You up there blowing a squirrel, Randy? So, we're gonna take a stroll up. So, what do you think? Hey gang, Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. What the fuck? Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.